pledge.
I would be happy to, Madam President. If everyone would please mute themselves, focus on my voice and my screen, and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Back to you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Sergeant at Arms. And we have tonight as our Toastmaster, oh, Barbara's joining us too. Hi, Barbara. Yay. We have joining us as our Toastmaster tonight, the ever-prepared Mr. Dean Carath.
Okay, well, thank you, Jackie, and good evening, everyone. The theme of the meeting tonight is truth or consequences. Once again, I had to look that up, but in this case, it was in response to a little tickle of memory in the back of my mind. And sure enough, as I read about it, I remembered that game show from the 60s and 70s. Yes, I'm dating myself. But Truth or Consequences was a kind of a goofy game show where contestants would try to answer questions, and if they got them wrong, which was pretty usual, they had to perform some zany or embarrassing task. Moving forward about 50 or 60 years, I think it's more like Truth and Consequences now, because unfortunately, it seems like large swaths of our population have abandoned any search for the truth. Indeed, those that speak the truth are soon taken to the woodshed by social media. And for those of you that were not here just before the meeting, Eric had a very nice, talked about a very nice group trying to bridge that gap and make some positive changes. So that's very, very encouraging. We do have a few program changes. Mary Syrie will not be giving a speech, so that frees up Christina from her evaluator responsibilities. And we had a couple other changes, but I think we don't need those. Correct?
Barbara, are you prepared to be au counter tonight?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay. We don't have any guests, so I don't need to introduce any. But what I will do was introduce Pat Whitfield, who volunteered to be our joke master and provide a joke of the day. Pat, you're up.
Well, now that the weather has changed, this isn't quite as seasonal as it might have been, but I just thought it was pretty funny. And there's a bunch of teachers in our crowd. So if any of you have ever taught elementary school, this should ring a bell with you. So here's the deal. A heavy snowstorm closed the schools in one town. When the children finally were able to come back to school a few days later, one elementary teacher asked her students whether they had used their time away from school constructively. "I sure did, teacher," one little girl replied. "I just prayed for more snow."
Well, that's sure something I did when I was growing up back in Wisconsin, and often our prayers were answered. Next, I want to introduce our general evaluator so that he can introduce the evaluation team and describe the evaluation portion of the meeting. Please welcome Eric Stepper, our general evaluator.
Thank you, Dean. My job as general evaluator is to evaluate the meeting from, excuse me, opening to ending. But as always, I've got to a crack team that's going to help me. And I've got a full team tonight. Our only speech is Jackie Graybill, and the evaluator is going to be Pat Whitfield. Pat, what will you do as an evaluator for Jackie's speech?
Okay, well, this is going to be her second evaluation speech for level 1 of the coaching pathway. And the purpose of this particular project is for the member to present a speech on any topic, receive feedback, and apply the feedback to a second speech. So whatever feedback she had previously received, and then she indicated that she has given this speech this morning in the other group. So, and what feedback she received from them that she's hoping to apply to this one. And then the purpose of this speech is for the member to demonstrate that she has applied the feedback received from the prior speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Our next team member is the timer. Rob, what does that entail?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. My role this evening is to provide a timing mechanism so that anyone who is giving a speech or an evaluation knows that they need to keep that speech or evaluation within a set prescribed amount of time. Now tonight, Jackie's doing a 20-minute speech. So, oh, I'm sorry. Jackie, is this going to be a 5 to 7 minute speech? My apologies. So tonight, what we're going to do, because I have a feeling not everyone is getting their ample vegetables. Tonight, what I will do at the 5-minute mark is I will provide the green bell peppers. At the 6-minute mark of her speech, I will display the yellow bell pepper. And at the 7-minute mark, I will provide the red bell pepper. Right side up. The evaluation is a 3-minute period, and at 2 minutes, I will display the green. At 2.5, the yellow, and at 3 minutes, the red. We also will have a fantastic slate of table topics this evening, and those are 1 to 2 minutes. So at 1 minute, I'll display the green. At 1.5 minutes, the yellow, and at 2 minutes, the red. And I will give an accounting at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Next up is our grammarian, and grammarian tonight is Selena. What is that going to entail as grammarian?
Thank you, Mr. Evaluator. So today, as a grammarian, it is my responsibility to pay close attention to all of the speakers, listening carefully to their language usage. I'll take note of any improper language, as well as any outstanding words, quotes, sayings, or thoughts. As grammarian, it is also my duty to introduce the word of the day. And I was so tempted to have the word of the day be gigatent, which is a pop-up green pod-like structure that can be used in all kinds of different ways. But I'm not sure if that qualifies as an actual word. So instead, I went with meteorological, which is relating to the branch of science. Hold on, I've got to get back to my relating to the branch of science concerned with the processes and phenomena of the atmosphere, especially as a means of forecasting the weather. And I picked that word because today is officially the first day of meteorological spring, because March, April, and May are generally when the spring-like weather is present. Over time, it's been determined. So today is the first day of meteorological spring and a good day to put up a gigatent. Back to you, Mr. Evaluator.
Thank you, Selena. Well done. Our newest member tonight is Barbara Walters. She is signed up, paid up, and in good standing. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
And Barbara tonight is going to be our account. What does that entail, Barbara?
Well, I just looked it up. So according to Toastmasters International, the purpose of the awe counter is to note any overused words or filler sounds used as a crutch by anyone who speaks during the meeting. Words may be inappropriate interjections such as and, well, but, so, and, you know. Sounds may be or as awe counter you, yeah, anyways, that's what I'll be looking for.
Look at you, way to go. I will now turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster after having introduced my team.
Thank you, Eric. You have a mighty fine team there. I suspect that they will perform much better than our meteorological heroes in their accuracy of assessing the meeting. Let's jump right into the speaking portion of the meeting. Our first and only speaker tonight will be Jackie Graybill. She will be doing her second speech, which incorporates feedback from a previous speech. It's a very interesting topic. She says it could be a great adventure or it could spell danger. Please welcome Jackie with her speech entitled Journeys.
I was so excited, but I was terrified. I had butterflies in my stomach, and I looked down at my two bags that I had packed my entire life into. And I thought about 9 years prior. It was a deja vu feeling as I was standing in the Seattle airport terminal. I had been here before, and I had made a choice before. Was I going to leave everything that I knew and fly and move 2,000 miles away? Or was I going to stay safe where I was? And I had so many thoughts running around in my head. My inner critic, Brutista, named such because she is very brutal, she had some things to say about this. Girl, don't you know that this is the most stupid thing you have ever done? This is ridiculous because you don't know anybody and you're moving to Nashville to be a singer-songwriter and you don't even really know if you're good enough. I mean, you could end up being like one of those people on American Idol who think they're good and they just suck. So that would be horrible to fly 2,000 miles away and not even be good at the thing you left your life behind to pursue. And you never know what's going to happen. Horrible things could happen. So I am just trying to keep you safe. You need to leave this airport right now and go back to your life. That was what Brutista had to say. But my inner cheerleader, Peach Angelica, had something different to say. Girl, don't you know that this is going to be so exciting? Even if you end up having to work for Starbucks or something, spoiler alert, I did. It is going to be an adventure. You're going to meet exciting people and you don't know what's going to happen. I think you need to take this step out there and wonderful things are going to happen for you. Well, Peach Angelica ended up being right because I decided to get on that plane. And on that plane, I met a producer. He was working on a project for the Wounded Warrior Project, and he had me into the studio 2 days after I moved to Nashville. I came out of the booth after recording with the headphones on for the first time, and I sat down and closed my eyes. I was worried about what it would sound like. And then I heard my voice through the speakers, and I opened my eyes, and I got the biggest smile ever. Felt like Christmas, and I realized I can do this. I'm not a horrible American Idol singer. All these thoughts were running through my mind. It was September 2020, and I was in the very same airport terminal 9 years later. Except this time, I wasn't going to uproot my life to move 2,000 miles away. I was going to uproot my life to move across the pond, and I didn't know anybody. And for anyone who has lived through 2020, which you all have, congratulations. 2020 is nothing like 2011. And so you better believe that Brutista had plenty to say. Girl, this is the most ridiculous thing you have ever done. I know we got through Nashville together by the skin of our teeth, but this is even crazier. It's like a different country, and you think you like those British people from all of the British movies and shows you've seen, but they might end up being stuck up and really horrible, and you might not even like them at all. And then you'll be 2,000 miles away, and let's talk about the worst thing that could happen. Girl, there is a pandemic going on. Pandemic. Isn't this a little irresponsible of you? You know what could happen? The worst thing that could happen is you could get on that plane and you contract the virus and you die. Batista had a lot to say. But Peach Angelica, on the other hand, she had a response. Girl, you know in your gut that this is the right thing to do, and even though the timing might not seem like it makes sense, you know it's the right thing to do, to attend this university and help make a difference in the lives of other people. So you go with your gut, girl. You get on that plane and we're gonna make it, and it's gonna be fabulous. As you may know, I ended up listening to Peach, and she was absolutely right. I got off the plane and I walked into what felt like a Jane Austen novel or movie, depending on what you've seen or read. The people were delightful. And even more, I knew that this was where I was supposed to be. So I want to ask you, what is the thing in your life that you have much trepidation about? Your version of Rutista is going crazy and telling you all the reasons you shouldn't do it. But I know you have an inner Peach Angelica who's telling you all the ways it's going to be exciting and make your life better. So I encourage you, listen to your gut, take that leap, and go on that exciting journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I always enjoy listening to stories from folks that have actually followed their dreams and taken some risk. It's very inspiring. At this point, I would like to ask the timer to give us a minute so that we can give Jackie some comments. 1 minute.
Mr. Toastmaster, that is 1 minute.
Okay, thank you, Rob. The next part of our meeting is everybody's favorite, the table topics. To lead us in the table topics session, please welcome Kathleen McNulty.
Thank you. My screen froze on the last speech, so I've just been quickly hooking myself directly up to my router. I know you wouldn't want to lose any part of table topics. When I looked at the idea that Lloyd threw out there for conversation today, I could think of 3 different things. The TV show that ran from 1956 to 1965, Truth or Consequences, the game show. The town in New Mexico named Truth or Consequences, related to that game show. Or the moral and philosophical questions around whether it's truth or consequences. Does truth lead to consequences? Does lying lead to consequences? As I disclosed at our last meeting, I'm a very shallow person. We are going to start with the game show. I had fun today. This is a brief story. I had fun today watching old synopses of Truth or Consequences. A lot of people here are too young to have ever seen them. The host brings 1 or 2 people on. It's like a trivia question. If they get it wrong, which they mostly do, they have to do something extraordinarily embarrassing. The first situation, 2 men, they both got the question wrong. They had to exit the stage, change into pajamas while singing Rock-a-Bye Baby. They had to run out and jump onto a bed that had been brought out onto the stage. The first person onto that bed was going to get a $50 war bond. This is how old it was. You could hear those men singing in the back, and they came barreling out, and the first one threw himself onto the bed. But it wasn't a bed. It was a giant container of water. Both of them head first into this water. The second one I watched, husband and wife had left the show. They had secretly mic'd up the husband. He went out to his parallel parked car where he was completely sandwiched in by 2 other cars. If this has happened to any of us, think about what you said. The audience got to hear every word of it. It was fairly amusing. My first question is related to those 2 stories. If you had to choose one of those consequences, which one would you prefer and why? Steve Schwinn.
What was the consequence of the guy walking out to his car other than the fact that the entire audience was listening to him? Well, I would opt for a swim in the pool. I have had less than proud moments with how I react to things. Sometimes unknowingly having an audience, and even sometimes blathering the truth of how I felt about something only to suffer the consequences after all. Life's such a funny thing that way. We can definitely step in it. And I guess that's the beauty of why you can't have recordings that are made without one's knowledge admissible in a courtroom, because it just ain't fair, no matter if you are a criminal. I'd be happy to go for a swim anytime. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. I neglected to give the purpose of our table topics. I'll briefly mention that. Glossed right over it. The goal of table topics is to give us all a chance to practice organizing our thoughts on the spur of the moment, presenting orally without too many filler words, managing our time to try and say something thoughtful, if we can, in 2 minutes. My second question is also related to these 2 scenarios from the Truth or Consequences show. As Steve alluded to, societal norms have changed a lot. We would never be able to mic someone without their knowledge, nor would we allow anyone to dive into a pool without a life jacket. My question is, are these changes a good thing, or do we aspire to the good old days of truth or consequences behavior? Christina.
Thank you, Kathleen. Personally, I aspire to the good old days. It seems to me that everyone is pretty happy to point fingers at others as being responsible for their own situations or their own consequences. It has reached meteorological proportions, in fact. You cannot pick up the newspaper without somebody suing somebody over something, particularly someone at the state level suing someone at the federal level, or someone at the federal level suing someone at the state level. It just has gotten ridiculous. The unfortunate thing is those tendencies at the upper echelons tend to filter down to people in a regular day-to-day basis. Something happened to our sense of humor somewhere along the way between the end of Truth or Consequences on TV and 2021. Perhaps if we brought back those old black and white shows that were so fun in the 50s and 60s, we could also bring back the sense of humor that went with them. Thank you.
Christina, thank you so much for that. You're a great segue. I want to move now into a more philosophical approach to the subject that we have today. The philosopher Kant argued that truth-telling is, quote, a perfect duty, one so basic it cannot be overridden by any other values. According to Kant, if asked outright, a person would be obligated to tell a murderer the whereabouts of his intended victim. Most of us are a little more utilitarian about truth-telling. We decide whether to lie based on the possible consequences. Trivial fibs don't hurt anyone. What trivial lies are acceptable to you, and have they ever had any consequences? Selena.
Lena, you're on mute.
Oh, good. I get to start over. That's awesome. Okay. So what trivial lies are acceptable to me? I have an example of a trivial lie that I think is acceptable to tell. My trivial lie is that I love to shop at Costco. I love to go to Costco, especially on Saturdays about noon, especially before the pandemic hit and there were samples everywhere. That was my favorite time to go to Costco. I had my list. I was on a mission. I would come into the store and we'd get to the to the breads, and there'd be lots of bread samples being handed out, and people would be milling about them, and I'm trying to check off my list, and I'm stuck. But I'm celebrating being stuck because I can be stuck there all day. I don't have anything else to do. So I'm stuck in the bread line. My husband's happy. He's getting lots of snacks, and I'm thinking about my list and celebrating that I'm going to get done faster than ever today. And finally, we get through the bread line and we go over, and there are samples of fish and then yogurts and ice cream. I'm starting to feel full. My list is about a third done. I'm having such a great time at Costco. I have nothing else to do but shop at Costco on a Saturday. No laundry, no bathrooms to clean, no floors to mop, nothing else to do on a Saturday but spend the day wandering around, or maybe just in line for the next sample at Costco. And then we finally get our shopping cart full. We get to the checkout. We're going outside to the parking lot. My husband says to me, "Wasn't it great going to Costco together?" "Yes, honey, it was awesome. Let's do it again next Saturday." And that's it. Thank you. Back to you. That's my little lie.
Well, I'm interpreting that to mean that Costco isn't your favorite place with your husband on Saturday, but you tell him it is?
It gives me road rage, quite honestly.
That was excellent. Thank you, Selena. Those of us who went to Sunday school or were even just brainwashed by our parents thought that one of the 10 commandments was thou shalt not lie. It turns out that that commandment actually says one shall not bear false witness against a neighbor. I looked that up today and I thought, that sounds like a wiggle room to me. Think back on the first lie you told as a child and share it with us, assuming there aren't too many consequences. Lloyd.
Do you have any idea how long it was ago that I was a child? Decades and decades ago. I think rather than the first lie, which I don't remember, most kids started at a fairly early age, and that age was a long time ago for me. I think the one that sticks out in my mind, and I used this actually in a contest speech before, was when I started smoking when I was a sophomore in high school. I was 15 or 16, whichever it would have been. And the reason I did it doesn't really matter. For the same reason most kids do things when they're 15 and 16. It seems like a good idea at the time. And my mom, it was one of those, and like most moms, I think, just sensed when something she didn't like was happening. And I think she knew I was smoking. I don't know how, but I'm pretty sure she did. So I lied about it and told her I didn't. And then later on, every time she asked me, I would lie again that I wasn't doing it. And she was, it was obvious she knew I was, but I was lying. And about 4 or 5 years later, after I quit, she asked me, and I even lied about that. I lied again. I said I never had smoked. And now, what is the point of this? The point is that most lies, to reflect back on one of your earlier questions, are of a pretty trivial nature when you get right down to it. But that's not the point. The point is that they accumulate. It's kind of like snow falling over the terrain. It slowly obscures what's underneath it. At a certain point, there's probably a critical mass of lies for each one of us that makes lying easier than telling the truth, or more preferable than telling the truth, because there are no consequences to the individual small lies. Now, what is the point of what I'm saying? I'm not really sure. I'm kind of lost in the weeds right now. But what it amounts to is that lying is a poor habit to get to. And that's what Kant was getting at with the quotation you read earlier. And I think I'll just stop now rather than just keep mumbling on.
Thank you, Lloyd. You get extra points for knowing and having read that quote. in the past.
I don't recommend you read anything that Kant wrote. It's like swimming in oatmeal.
As I said, I'm pretty shallow. That's not likely to happen to me. As you were talking, I could think about when I was a teenager in my house up on the second floor with the summertime with the window open and the screen there, puffing on my cigarettes, blowing the smoke out the window as if it was really going to go away. My parents didn't ask me about it, so I never had to lie.
All right.
Possibly the first lie we ever tell our children is about Santa Claus. I avoided this by not saying anything to my kids about Santa Claus and allowing society to lie to them. They were quite a bit older. They still believed in the Easter Bunny too, and Santa Claus, until they were fairly old. How would you justify telling your children about Santa Claus or not telling them about Santa Claus? Once they found out he isn't real, how would you explain that to them? Or did you explain that to them? Barbara.
Thank you, Kathleen. I raised two boys. Both of them, yes, I lied about Santa Claus being real. As they grew older, I switched that lie to being more of Santa Claus has helpers. So when we went to the mall or to Owl Drug, which used to be on the corner, and you could go in and you could see Santa. Age myself a little there. I would say that wasn't the real Santa. That's his helper. I think I was justifying my lie. So I felt that if they, and when, I should say, found out, I could say that I was Santa Claus's helper. My oldest son came home one day to tell me that his teacher told his entire class that Santa Claus wasn't real. I still don't know if I believe him because this was one of my favorite fifth grade teachers, or wasn't fifth grade, he was younger. I did have the talk. I sat down with him and I said, Santa Claus is real in spirit and we're all his helpers. And then I said, we have to believe in Santa Claus. So for the love and for the gifts. I felt like a horrible parent at the time. I'm going to stop there, but.
Thank you, Barbara. That was a great story. All of us as parents or grandparents have been through that Santa Claus Easter Bunny thing. I still can't believe how long the Easter Bunny lasted. It was because we used to take those Easter eggs and we would put wishes inside them, things that they could redeem later on. Train them, I guess. You train them to believe. When you think about truth or consequences, it implies that lying has consequences, but not the truth. I think the truth sometimes does have consequences. I can think of an example where I was working for the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., down in my basement office, and a reporter from the Seattle Post-Intelligencer came in and said, your boss sent me down, my boss, the congressman, to get the budget for next year for nuclear waste. I gave him the budget. I gave him the truth, the budget. It turned out that he exposed that and got someone else in trouble who was telling less than the truth about the budget. The consequences of telling the truth were pretty significant for me, for my boss, for other people. person who was lying had bigger consequences. However, still telling the truth had some consequences. My question is, can you think of a time or tell us an example from someone else where telling the truth had really bad consequences? I'm going to call on Eric. Is that okay, Eric? Unless you want to defer to someone else.
I was hoping the mute wouldn't work, but apparently she got it working. I'm learning all kinds of things, Barbara and Kathleen. You're not only shallow, you're a coward. So we got to play this game more often. The truth is that we brought my mom and her husband up from Manzanita on the Oregon coast to Spokane, and that's why I missed the meeting. The truth was, I sat my mother down. It was going to be a 7-hour drive, and I said, "You need to get some snacks and get some water because we're going to rock through this thing. We're not stopping for dinner." And so we're probably about halfway through the trip. We stop at a Love's gas station, which is basically a convenience store, and actually has a Carl's Jr. in it. My mom's husband has been in the hospital for like 2 months and walks with a walker. And we stopped at the Loves, and he was going to get out and stretch his legs. And all of a sudden, he isn't very communicative. He just started tromping off with his walker. I said, "Hey, hang on a second." And his daughter, Suzanne, let him go. And Ani went into Carl's Jr. Okay. And he sat down, he was going to order a hamburger, and they did. And I was not happy because I don't know what his state of health is and what's going on. So he had a hamburger, and sure enough, we're out in the parking lot because we've been eating snacks and we're not hungry. And my mom comes out and says, he's fading. Well, he had kind of a seizure, and he wasn't communicative, and they had to call the paramedics, all the good time stuff. And they came, took his vitals, and said his vitals are as good as ours. And I said to his daughter, "Are you okay with going on, or we're going to put him in the hospital?" She says, "I'm ready to go." We get him in the car, and the consequences were that she was so excited. We got out on the freeway, and I'm going 82, and I am not catching her. And I asked Christina to text my mom in their car because we're following them. I said, "I'm happy to go 75, but I'm not going 82. So she said, "I'm not happy going 82 either." I never did see Suzanne again. So some more consequences were she was so excited and agitated, she missed all the roundabouts in Richland, and we were ahead of them by about 12-mile markers. Truth and consequences, real life just happened. Thank you.
Those sound like some interesting consequences. We have time for one more. It's going to be a repeat. It's the question about, I'll call on someone unless there's a volunteer. What was your first lie that you can remember as a child? Rob, that's who I was going to call on.
We got the time on this.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. As a child, I was raised to tell the truth because the consequences of being caught in a lie were worse than telling the truth. However, there was one occasion that I remember. I was supposed to take a nap, and my brother was supposed to take a nap. I hated naps. I was upstairs in my bedroom. My brother was in his bedroom, and I snuck down the hall with my Tonka truck, and I told him, "We're going to play truck." Before I had a chance to wake him up because he was asleep, I got caught. I told my mom that my brother told me to come down to his room so that we could play trucks. Because I told my mother what happened, didn't happen, she sent me to my room, and I heard screaming and hollering coming from my brother's room because he got a whooping. I wasn't terribly upset because the day before, he and I were across the street over by the pasture where the cows were located. There is an electric wire that runs around that pasture. My brother suggested that I clamp my hand around that that electric wire, and I did. It draws your hand close when there's an electric current going through it. At least that's what I thought at the time, because I couldn't get my hand off that electric wire. And I told my brother, pull me off, pull me off. And he touched my arm and he said, no, it's shocking me. So I was a little upset with him the day before. So I feel like he got his just desserts the next day. That's my story. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Rob, for that story of brotherly love. I'm going to turn this back over to our Toastmaster, wishing everyone or hoping that all of your consequences are happy ones. Back to you, Dean.
Thank you, Kathleen. Those were very interesting and engaging questions, and quite a few very interesting answers. The next portion of our meeting is the evaluation portion. And for that, to lead that part of it, I want to turn the meeting back over to Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Patricia, will you give us your evaluation of Jackie's speech? Thank you.
Only if you call me Pat.
Oh, you like
The
that?
reasons-
It says
well,
Patricia.
I know, and that's because another group that I'm in has two Pats. And so I said, okay, I'll be Patricia, but you guys all know me as Pat. And Patricia is always what I was called when I was in trouble, Patricia Ann, or when I was in Catholic school, Patricia. So, just keep it. And having said that, I will go to my evaluation of Jackie's speech. It was a very engaging story with the characters differentiated. One of the things that she was working on was better use of her space. She had been given feedback about how to do that. And I can see that she incorporated that because as she chose each characterization, she moved her space, she moved physically to a different side with herself, the main character being in the middle, and then her good self being on one side and her, I'll call it her evil self, being on the other side. So we would clearly know which character was speaking, not only by the dialect that she used and the tones that she used, but also by the physical space that she used. So there was really good differentiation of characters, and there was excellent use of space. It was a great storyline about 2 episodes in her life that were surely life-changing. One of the things I thought she did exceptionally well was her closure, bringing it to us as an audience and engaging the audience, asking us, have we ever been in that situation and what would we do? And coming in so close to the camera. So she used her forward space as well as her side-to-side space. She had lots of expression, a great deal of vocal variety, and a variety of gestures. Overall, it was very, very entertaining. The one thing that I would suggest in terms of something you might want to work on, since you're someone who uses a lot of gestures, is I noticed a lot of head bobbing this time. I don't know if that's because you were trying to move from side to side, but I noticed a lot of head bobbing that I hadn't noticed before in your previous speeches. Overall, very entertaining, very engaging, very articulate, and very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Good job. Next up, Rob, how do we do on timing?
We did very well. Jackie, Bertista, and Peach Angelica were at 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Well done. Table topics. Kathleen, I included you because your intro was 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Steve, you were at minute 2. Christina, you were a minute 32. Selena, 2 minutes on the button. Lloyd, you were 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Barbara, I have to apologize. I was so engrossed in your presentation that I forgot to start the clock. So I'm estimating that you were at a minute 49, give or take 2 or 3 minutes. Eric, you were at 2 minutes and 46. I was at 2:18. Patricia Ann was at 2:14. So everyone did wonderfully. That's my report. Back to you.
Thank you, Rob. Selena, how'd we do on the grammarian tonight?
Well, everyone did fabulously. Not a lot of use of the word of the day. And I don't blame everyone because I'm not sure I even pronounce it correctly. And I spent some time practicing meteorological. It's a tough one to wrap your tongue around for sure. But Dean gets credit for trying. You used it in meteorological heroes. I don't know what that means, but at least you got the word in service. So that is excellent. Jackie, I enjoyed so much all of your different characters, and I was so into your story that I didn't catch a lot of the grammarian part, but again, it's in character. So I fall in love with that Peach Angelica character. When you go with your gut, girl, I mean, there's alliteration in there. I love the use of that, and I just love the dialogue. And I love when you encourage us all to go out and find your inner Peach and Angelica and embrace her. Kathleen, you always teach us so much whenever you have a part to play in one of our sessions, referencing Kant, and then wrapping it all up at the end by wishing us all good consequences in the future. And Lloyd, I loved your reference to Kant when you said, I don't recommend you read anything by Kant. It's like swimming in oatmeal. Does not recommend Kant highly to our group. Rob, your conversation was electrifying. That's all I can say about that. And that's my grammarian report.
Thank you, Selena. Very good. Barbara, how'd we do on the ahs and the ers and fillers tonight?
Thank you, Eric. I want to start out by saying Jackie, I got so engaged in your story that I didn't count as very, very well. But then I want to also add to everybody, I did not count the Valley Girl likes as they were a part of her speech. I did catch one and with Kathleen, a perfect score. Steve, you said and once. Selena, I got an and an and. Lloyd, a one and I didn't catch anything with Eric and Rob. Did I miss anyone? If I did, I'm sorry, I didn't count you. I did catch an with myself. Back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Barbara. I will evaluate our meeting. We started on time. We are going to end on time if we rock through. My whole team showed up and it was very nice. Did a great job. And I'm just very pleased to see the newbies, Selena and Barbara, stepping into their roles in a meaningful way. Awesome. And with that, I will hand it over to our president, Jackie.
Fantastic. Wonderful meeting tonight. Thank you, everyone. Very, very articulate and fun answers and unique aspects that you put into your roles tonight. Thank you for all of that and for going beyond. Are we going to vote on best speaker tonight? Yes? Okay, so if we would send that to Rob, that would be fantastic. Just go ahead and make sure that he is the one you're sending it to, not everyone. And Lloyd, do you have any little bits of wisdom for us or anything you would like to draw our attention to?
Well, I was kind of giving some thought to summarizing Kant's greatest hit, The Critique of Pure Reason, which is where that quotation that Kathleen had came from, but everybody would instantly go to sleep. Some of you may have to drive after this, and I'd hate to see you die in a flaming crash. I should mention tonight that what we heard tonight was Jackie's sort of a early draft of what will be her international speech contest speech going forward. If there is anyone else in here who would like to enter that contest, this would be a really good time to speak up. We're entitled to have 2 people to represent our club in the area contest, which is coming up, I think March 27th. So let me know soon if you plan to enter that. I'm supposed to tell. Oh wait, I'm supposed to tell the area governor, or area director, but that's me. So I'll just tell myself, and everything will be okay. But anyway, this is a relatively early draft, and what's likely to happen is that the speech will evolve as it goes along. That's what contest speeches always do. But anyway, we will be able to cheer Jackie along. All of the speech contests this year, including the district contest and the international convention contest, are going to be virtual. So anybody who's interested in that can watch them all the way on through the process, which didn't happen before the virus. So there are some good things as a result of COVID, assuming you're not one of the people who gets it. But in any event, I can't think of anything else. Well, we need to think about dues. We have dues coming up again on April 1. So Eric, how do you want to handle those? Do you want people to mail you checks or what?
Yeah, if you can mail checks to me and I'll put the address. So Christine's going to put it in the chat right now. And
okay, I'll put it in my email tomorrow also.
Yeah, that'd be great. And let's everybody try and impress me and get your dues in early.
Yeah.
And the amount, put that in the email too.
Yeah, I will.
Yep.
Well,
Okay.
Eric, I don't know if I'm going to impress you or not, but I already submitted mine online, the $45 one. So I'll have to give you the club aspect of that.
Yeah.
I saw that. I was impressed.
Yay, me. And also, Lloyd, we have the international speech contest, but we also have the evaluation contest too. Is that correct?
It's humorous speech contest is
It's
the other one
humorous
this
speech.
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm organizing the club one for my UK group and also the area one for my UK group, and they're doing the evaluation.
Yeah, our district has chosen to do humorous, which, I've done that one a bunch and done pretty well in it. I can't imagine doing that without a live audience because it depends almost entirely on being able to read the audience in order to get pacing. I can't even picture how anybody's going to do that. So I'm kind of happy that I'm not eligible this year because I probably wouldn't do it. I don't think it'd be winnable.
And it's a blank screen, right? When we compete, we just see a blank screen. We don't see.
Yeah, you'll see yourself and the timing signals, and that's it. That's going to be very, very difficult.
Well, it's good that we can practice on Zoom.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Yep.
Do you have a vote tally for us, Rob?
I do, Madam President. I want to thank everyone for voting. I do have to let people know that not every week do I get votes from everybody. So I appreciate everyone taking the time to vote. Tonight we have 3 winners: Jackie, Bertista, and Peach Angelica. Congratulations to all 3 of them. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought you were going to say me and you and Barbara. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. And thank you all for letting me bring my embryonic international speech contest speech to you all. This is exciting. I've never done a contest before, so I'm a little nervous. Thank you for a wonderful meeting. We are 1 minute over.